Cooperative learning is the discussion for this lecture. Cooperative learning is sometimes mistaken for what is known as group work. We need to differentiate the two. Group work is when people in a group obviously do a project. But cooperative learning is when people get together and they create what is known as learning in the group. So to be clear, if I have a factory and I tell everyone to build a car, well, that would be known as group work because everyone knows how to build the car, so they put it together. In cooperative learning, everyone learns from one another in doing the project, and therefore they receive their own outcomes. So cooperative learning is not group work. And that's why sometimes we call group work busy work, which is what we do not want to do. This PowerPoint is more of a PDF. It shows it's a chapter I got that's a really good chapter on small group and cooperative learning. So let me just hit some of these points right here that are very important. And it says right here, cooperative learning is defined as a process involving students working in structured teams with the goal of every student improving. And then it says that when you have cooperative learning and everyone is learning, then these characteristics can come to light, such as a longer retention of academic content, improved intrinsic motivation, a reduction of disruptive behaviors, improve social relationships in the classroom. Why is this obviously? The reason is human beings by nature like to socialize. Be it gossip or just hanging out and talking to your friends, the ability to get together and talk to one another is a big thing that makes us humans. So whenever we have direct instruction where the teacher is just teaching an entire classroom, that can kind of become a stymie relationship where the students are wanting to interact, but they cannot. That's why teachers say, raise your hand to be called upon. With cooperative learning, students are able to socialize and interact with one another, and this will in turn help the education system. One key phrase that we see is the phrase of modeling. Now, modeling is when a teacher or person of authority shows how to learn something. Now, modeling can also be done by the students in the peer group. I will use a swimming pool as an example. Whenever you learn how to swim, you have a swimming instructor who models the swimming technique to you, and then you practice. But the final stage of learning how to swim is when a student is in 2 foot of water, standing with their friends or their peers, and they watch them swim. One of the students goes under the water, and the other student says, I can do that same thing. What's happening is the students are modeling how to swim to one another, just like the teacher modeled to them. Sadly enough, many students do not like to be modeled by the teacher. Some students, for reasons we don't really understand, just do not like to be taught by adults, or they may have an authority issue. So therefore, whenever students can be modeled by both the teacher and the student, it creates a better and stronger learning environment. Cooperative learning allows this, and it allows students to receive modeling from both the teacher and the students. Learning occurs when students become active participants in the lessons. And when students are allowed to be in peer groups and to socialize and to help learn, then they become actively involved. The increased student-to-student and student-to-teacher interactions with cooperative learning encourages and helps develop students' oral language proficiencies, increases the possibility and the probability that they will acquire new content, and add to the sense of personal competence. Some students simply do not like group work. And this is one of the key elements that we must see when we look at modeling. And that is, when students encounter group work, they've encountered group work that has not been done properly. And when that is the case, it is because of a lack of planning. Teachers must strive to plan cooperative learning techniques. As I observe student teachers, I see student teachers and they'll teach direct instruction. And direct instruction is when teachers just teach directly to a classroom. It's the basic lecture premise. And they do a pretty good job with that. However, after about the third lesson where we're doing cooperative learning, where we're doing just basic direct instruction, the student teacher will then try to go out and do cooperative learning. However, they haven't learned the proper techniques of cooperative learning, and they decide that they're just going to do what's called group work. So they'll be teaching a class and they'll say, let's all break into groups, and the students just break into groups, and then they teach them, and then they have them, and it usually all falls apart then. What has happened is the student teacher has attempted and tried cooperative learning, but without a lack of planning, they have failed to make it effective. Planning is the key to cooperative learning, and cooperative learning is very difficult to be done correctly.
There was a falling out, things were said, people were betrayed. Jeff, having heard Pierce's side of the story, I think the only humane thing to do would be to give you a C and let Pierce do his presentation alone, if that sounds fair to you.
That doesn't sound fair to me at all.
Pierce, I understand if you don't want to be my friend.
But this thing that we've created, it is bigger than the both of us, and it deserves to be done right.
Okay, guys, why are there costumes involved? These are short conversations. They're not supposed to take...
Your breath away?
Well, tough.
You ready, amigo?
See.
It's not what you thought when you first began it. You got what you want. You can hardly stand it though. By now you know it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop till you answer.
F minus.
What? Did you say S?
Now that we know what cooperative learning is, we want to see how we can create a very good environment for students to be very productive in cooperative learning. Now, students, for the most part, do have some knowledge about how to work productively in a group, but sometimes you need to teach that. To be sure, if a group task is poorly structured, the purpose of the activities are unclear. So what we need is the students to have a tangible evidence that will be produced from the group work. This tangible evidence is what we call a product of learning. It's the end of the lesson. The students need to have the ability to know what needs to be produced from the group work or the cooperative learning. Many teachers who are reluctant to use group and cooperative learning express concerns that some students they put into groups will not work productively in this type of instructional setting. So you need to make sure that the students know what is going to be expected of them and what will be produced. To do this, you need to teach prerequisite skills. It makes sense for you to provide students with some initial instruction that focuses on specific skills that will help them work together. Examples of these types of skills include active listening, giving clear explanations, resolving conflicts, avoiding put-downs, and asking for clarification. I personally feel that active listening is the most important element of group work. Students need to be able to listen and to process the information as it is given to them. A teacher must also understand the peer relationships that exist within students in their school settings. How well your students know one another, the norms of their peer group, or their dominance, or the class clown, as we call it. Are there students who are going to cause trouble? Are there students who will gossip a lot? As you prepare for a career in secondary education or any field of education, you might want to see these variables in action. Of course, to do this, you'll definitely need to do a practicum, which really helps out, or just observing people as they're in a classroom setting. Worst case scenario, if you cannot see a school going on and you cannot see interactions, you can go to Walmart and you can watch peer groups as they interact. I'm not saying stare at them, but you can see how students and children act in peer groups. So you can notice that whenever you're shopping in Walmart and you see a group of teenagers, watch how they interact. Watch who's the leader. Just small interactions. But for the most part, anybody who goes to Mississippi State University will have to do practicum and observations. And that's whenever you can actually sit down and watch students interact, which is very important. What I always advise people whenever they do practicum is to just focus on a group of students while you're sitting in that classroom and just watch them. Because the teacher will be doing the teaching and you can just watch. Watch how the students interact, how they dominate one another, who's in charge. All of this underscores the importance of taking time to learn something about your students every time you get a new group. What you find will vary somewhat depending on the particular setting of your school. For example, in a small country secondary schools, in areas where there is not much moving in and out of the area, students may know each other from kindergarten. But in large urban schools or schools which have a Navy base near them or any type of Army base, you may have students coming in that are new to the situation. If you find yourself teaching in an area with large fluid movement or students with large student bodies, you may find that only a few students in your classes know each other. So therefore, you're going to have to do some ice breaking, some groundwork whenever you're dealing with, let's talk about each one and know who's in the dynamics of the group. Another thing that you need to do as a teacher is to create a climate of respect and trust. Productive group work depends mutual respect and trust. If your students do not respect one another, they will have difficulty accepting the contributions of all members of the class. Under such conditions, your efforts to promote cooperative learning may very well fall short of their goal. And students may develop, and they may be upset with each other. And we don't want that. So in that case, you need to make sure you're monitoring and establishing classroom management throughout the cooperative learning experience. You also need to distribute the workload equal. You also need to help students involved in small group work develop attitudes of mutual respect. This will not happen simply by telling students that this is your expectation. Respect must be earned. I see this on the news a lot. They'll say, so-and-so disrespected me. Remember that respect must be earned, and it's earned by being a human being. But also, students must, to be respected of their idea, they must bring something to the group. Now, we're not saying that we need to be mean to one another, but for someone in a group to have their idea respected and to be processed by the group, it must be worked and developed and earned. So, for example, if I'm teaching about the JFK Kennedy assassination, and I'm looking at the Kennedy assassination, I'm having all the students break apart the Zapruder film, and they're discussing that. then I need to make sure that if someone walks in there and they haven't done any homework and they haven't brought anything to the group, then their ideas will not be respected. So I need to teach that as a class, that your ideas will be respected if you do the work and you bring something to the table. Decreasing risk factors. One of the greatest risk factors that interferes with student involvement is fear of failure. For individuals to cooperate, they must feel that they are in a safe environment. You must take action to lower the risk of participation and active involvement. For small group learning lessons to be effective, your students must first believe that working together will enhance their opportunities for success. Sometimes, academically talented students fear that working in small groups puts them at risk. They must be convinced that they can do better working alone rather than as members of a small group and as collective responsibility for a task. What research has found is that students who do very well academically have trouble with group learning because they have not had good experiences with that. So as a teacher, you need to pull back the fear of failure and say, yes, I understand you're a straight A student, and I understand that you want to make A's on every assignment, and you're concerned that this group project will lower your grade. I need you to pull away from that fear. Because you're an A student and I know you and I understand what's expected of you, I will not have a large amount of weight on your grade if someone does not do a great job. So you need to pull back the fear of failure for some of those students. Many of your students are also likely to be concerned about the issue of grading. Some students fear any approach that alters the way grades are given. They often feel that a change will put them at a competitive disadvantage. When you introduce small group learning, you have to take care to explain how students will be assessed. So explain the rubric, explain how everything will be graded, and explain all these elements of that.
I stand before you today as someone who has achieved within your mold of standardization. I speak as a student who has taken the tests and jumped through the hoops. I've taken over 12 honors courses, 18 AP courses so far in my high school career. I'm a National Merit semifinalist, a National AP Scholar. I scored a 35 on my ACT composite the first time I took it. And I'm a very proud product of our Knox County school system. It's my teachers that have inspired me to learn and pursue my interests. It's my teachers that have sent me towards success in academics and extracurriculars. And it's my teachers that have fostered a sense of creativity, inquisitiveness, and individuality that inspires me to learn. However, as our schools take another step towards becoming the next big bureaucracy in America, I would like to call for a conference of concern. With the new Common Core system, I see us shifting even further into a one-size-fits-all factory of education, where we churn out students seen as proficient through testing. A close friend came here last month and described the flaws inherent with the foundation of our educational bureaucracy, and I'm here today to discuss one of the consequences. My largest concern is with the influx of high-stakes testing and the effect it is having on our students. We need to understand that setting high standards and helping students work towards achieving them is drastically different from mandating all students to achieve them. Investigate the Common Core Work Group, and you see a board comprised of members affiliated with the ACT, College Board, and Achieve, Inc. Perhaps the mere presence of these people does not concern you, but it is a glaring conflict of interest. For-profit companies should not have such influence over public education. I understand that businesses pursue revenue. However, while public education is grossly lacking in funds, should we as taxpayers not be directing what funds we do have towards properly educating the students and not towards these corporations for hire? Pearson PLC is the largest education company and book publisher in the world. Pearson Ed, the American subsidiary, not only publishes the educational materials for our schools, but also the standards and tests for the CCSS. The company stands to make billions of dollars selling these products to school districts across the United States. Pearson's chief financial officer, Robin Freestone, said that we're not going to get a significant boost from Common Core, and that won't come in 2013, and so that headwind will remain in our school business, when in fact their market value hit its high in the past 12 years and has been steadily increasing with Common Core implementation. With this school business, we see that CCSS furthers a process begun in 2002 with the Bush administration's No Child Left Behind Act. And according to the Pew Center on the States, annual state spending on standardized tests rose from $423 million before No Child Left Behind to $1.1 billion by 2008. This has continued under the Obama administration's race to the top, which has tied federal funding for schools even closer to test-based performance standards run by for-profit companies. Have we forgotten what education is? It is not a business to be run. It's a process of informing human beings so that they can contribute to our society. A system formed on the principles of arbitrary testing and formed in such a corrupt manner cannot stand. But for a moment, let's just forget the business and politics and examine the actual tests. We look towards PARCC assessments, the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness of College and Careers. These nationalized tests that have been paired with Common Core are said to have one goal, of success in college and the workplace. The problems, however, presented on this test, however, are of justification without merit, a learning system inherently flawed. If you look towards the mathematics section of the PARCC website, we see that it calls for written arguments, justifications, or precision in mathematical statements. As a student who has scored 5s on AP Calculus and AP Statistics exams and is preparing to take Calculus 3 at a local college next semester, I can honestly tell you that I am unable to answer or justify your first grade Pearson math question, what is a related subtraction sentence? Beyond these shoddily made standards and tests, even the way we teach is now entrenched in data. Our students need merely look at the TDPs and SPIs on the board and see that our schools are being turned into data-run factories, factory based on speedily approved standards that are now being implemented around the country. I know one of these factories personally. It's the one that we're trying to compete with. I've been a student of both the American and Chinese systems, and the policies being put in place here are leading us towards the American equivalent of the Chinese entrance exams and Gaokao. Both high-pressure, standardized exams that plague students' lives. It's inarguable that we see a technical outperformance by the Chinese in standardized tests. But does their standardized victory communicate the creative and inquisitive mindset of our own culture? A mindset that is now often overshadowed by cram sessions in other parts of the world? As someone who can perform on the tests you throw at us, I'm not satisfied. I've taken your tests. I've aced them. I've pulled your state averages up. But what I show you on that test is not why I learn. CCSSE.ELA-literacy W.11-12.3E is not why I learn. I do not learn to demonstrate some SPIs or TDPs on the board. This is not what fulfills me as a student. I do not learn to demonstrate. I learn to ask questions, to develop opinions, and to make a difference. It is with this that I beseech all of you to take a moment to reevaluate what you are doing to our schools. Is it truly in the best interest of the students? Should we be conforming to this automated factory of education? Thank you for your time, man.
Talk, 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 talk. Verbal communication is the most common way we speak to one another. But the thing is, are we really using the two most important tools for communication? You know what I'm talking about. Our ears. How well we listen can have a huge impact on the quality of our relationships. So are we really listening to what we're saying to each other? You're watching Emerald TV, stick around. I'm going to share with you 5 simple steps in becoming an active listener. Now before I get started, make sure you hit subscribe so these videos can come straight to you. And if you enjoyed this video and you found it beneficial in any way, hit like and share this with a friend. And if you want to connect, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, here on YouTube, and over at my blog. And if you love videos on productive living, health and fitness, and would love insight that I only provide through email, head on over to the blog and subscribe to my free newsletter. Now the reason I bring up this topic is because I believe communication is the most important component in any relationship, professional or not. In just a bit, I'm going to be sharing with you a step-by-step process in becoming an active listener. But first, I want to say this. The fact is, you really aren't listening to what I'm saying right now. Everything you're hearing is becoming an interpretation. What you're hearing is either aligned, against, or neutral to your beliefs. And more often than not, when people talk to each other, we're often distracted, half listening, or thinking about something else. We listen to obtain information, to understand, to enjoy ourselves through stories, and to learn. While many people claim that they're good listeners, the result of how well we listen is reflected on how often we get into conflict or a misunderstanding. Let's say we do get into a conflict with a friend, coworker, or spouse. When we're in this situation, more often than not, we're busy formulating a response so we can win the argument instead of paying attention. Here's the deal. Hearing is a natural gift that many of us are blessed to have. Listening, on the other hand, is a skill. Most of the arguments that we tend to run to are simply that, misunderstandings. When we're in a conflict, we often contradict one another. We deny each other's description of the situation. This causes defensiveness, lashing out, or withdrawal. Active listening allows you to respond to the person that improves mutual understanding. Becoming a better listener not only improves understanding, it builds trust and tends to open people up. This also allows you to get to a resolution quicker instead of trying to go around in circles trying to explain yourself to one another. So here's how you can be an active listener today. Number 1, pay attention. Give this person 100% of your undivided attention. This means eye contact, body language, and presence. Be solely focused on what this person has to say. Don't mentally prepare to rebuttal. 2, be involved. Use your own body language to show that you're really engaged with what they're saying. Looking side to side, looking over them, looking down, just comes off as insincere. A lot of what's being said is also being communicated through the body, so pay attention. Now, I know this can be a little tricky, so here are a couple tips. Make sure your posture is open and inviting. Crossed arms can normally read as being closed off. Encourage the other person to continue by saying uh-huh or verbal comments such as yeah, gotcha. Listen to their body language. Back. Our personal beliefs can filter and distort what we hear. To improve our skill as listeners, it's our responsibility to really understand what's being said. Here's how you can do that. Say that you're in a conflict that someone's telling you that they don't like how you treated that one person. Here's how you can reflect on what they say to you. What I'm hearing you say is that you didn't like how I treated that person. Reflect on what's being said. Ask questions to clarify points. What do you mean when you say, and then you repeat what they just said to you? Or you can say, is this what you mean when, so on and so forth. Repeat what they just said. So summarize what they're saying from time to time. And if you find yourself responding more emotionally to what someone said, say so and then elaborate. I may not be understanding you correctly and I find myself taking what you said personally. What I thought you said is that what you meant? Step 4. Don't judge. Interrupting is the hugest waste of time. It frustrates the person speaking and limits the full understanding of the message. Allow that person to finish each point before asking any questions. And don't interrupt with counterarguments. And 5, respond appropriately. Attacking the person or putting them down does nothing for anyone. The whole point is that you're gaining information and a perspective. So be open and honest in your response, but also be respectful in how you give your opinions. I know this is all easier said than done, but like I said, it's a skill. It takes a lot of hard work and determination to become a really good active listener, especially if you've never practiced it. Put aside of how you think things should be and really focus on what the person has to say. The more you practice this, the more you improve on your communication and maybe even your relationships. Remember, every step can lead to a small win and every small win can lead to a big victory. And that's it for today's video. If you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe so these videos can come straight to you.
Let's now look at some ways to have students do icebreakers for group work. There are several ways that we can do this, and these are in these following sections. One is the method called 2x2. In that approach, you take 2 students and you put them in, they get to talk to each other, so one gets to talk to the other one. Once that's been done, you take 4 students and you bring them together and you say, okay, every one of the 4 describe what you have learned about the other person that you interviewed. So what you're really doing is you're taking 2 students interviewing each other, and then they go to a group of 4 and tell the other people what they have learned about that. That's a very easy icebreaker technique, and it's called the 2x2. The other one is the think, pair, share. That's a technique that teachers can use to introduce small group learning by beginning with a focus on dialogue between 2 students. You begin this approach by giving members of your class a question or problem to consider. In the first phase, each student thinks individually about the focus issue you have selected. Next, ask the students to work in pairs for the purpose of sharing their responses to the question or the problem. Follow this step by asking each pair of students to share their responses with the entire class. So what you do is you think, pair, share. You think about an issue, pair everyone together, talk about it, and then you share that with the larger group. This allows students to get together and brainstorm together, and work in smaller groups, and then to share that. Now remember, with all cooperative learning, you want to begin small in groups of 2, and once everyone learns how to do that, then you would expand the groups into larger numbers. The next one is called Inside Out. In Inside Out, this is where you help students develop skills that assist them in becoming more productive members of small groups. In this approach, you organize members into 2 circles. People in one circle are located inside a larger surrounding outside circle. You assign the outsiders, the members of the outside circle, to observe behaviors of the inside. You give them a task, and the insiders complete it within 5 or 10 minutes. Then you flip it. You give a second task, and the outside people work on the inside, and now the inside people are the outside, and they're observing them. You then bring everyone together and see if they can give a synopsis of how the person they observed worked. So for example, I would say, Billy, I observed him, and he's very quiet, but he gets the work done. He's very good at that. And then Billy would say they observed Karen, and Karen likes to write and likes to talk a lot, and she did a real good job with the report. So this is Inside Out. It also teaches students how to be active listeners, and also encourages them to observe and listen to people as they work. Numbered heads together, you can use the numbered heads together approach to introduce students to the idea of group scoring and individual accountability. What you'll do is you'll take everyone in, you can do groups of 4. So you say, okay, everyone's in a group, you're number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you give them a problem and you have them work on the problem. And then what happens is you stay halfway through the project, you stop everything. You say, okay, number 2s, answer me this question. And you pose the number 2 or the number 4, whichever one you've identified, a question that can only be answered if they're working as a group. And that's what you want. So I'll give everyone an example. If you're talking about the JFK assassination, then you would say everyone's working on the details of it in the group. And you would stop and say, number 4, who was the shooter? And hopefully by working in a group, that person would know. The other people in the group cannot help them. They were supposed to be sharing the information before you stopped everything and called the number. So this is number heads together. Very simple. And the last part of number heads together is to give points for successful answers. What that allows to do is it allows competition among the groups. And it shows people that if you work in a group, you receive a reward, even though it's a trivial point or whatever you want to do it. Buzz session is another technique that you can use to build effective small group participation skills. Begin a buzz session by organizing members of your class into small groups. Each group is given a focused topic. Choose one student to be the recorder, and then everyone has different roles. The buzz session begins by group members generating as much information as they can related to what they already know about the topic. Next, the group develops some ideas related to what group members would like to know. The group then considers how many members might find out what they would like to know. The buzz session technique helps students think about how they can start a group task. So with the buzz, we also call that brainstorming. With a buzz session, everyone gets together in their groups and they talk about and they start developing their own process of their learning. They set their objectives. Kind of works out pretty well. I knew a buzz session that happened at Ole Miss where a bunch of graduate students got together and they said they wanted, and I'll bring up the topic once again about the Kennedy assassination, and they wanted to created a buzz session where they all got together, they talked about what they knew about the Kennedy assassination, and then they decided to just go ahead and spend a month of their time, their free time, deciphering and looking at all the research. And these are graduate students. And they analyzed it on multiple levels, and they brought it back together, and they came up with their own theory of the assassination. But that was a buzz session of very highly educated people, and they did a real good job with that. So, and they set their goals out. Did a real good job. This final section of the lesson is just going to show everyone some cooperative learning approaches. So we've learned about cooperative learning and we've learned about group work and how it differs. But now we're going to look at just some basic cooperative learning approaches that have been documented. And they've also been named. So we're just going to look at a couple of these. And these are videos that I pulled from YouTube that are very instructional. One is called the jigsaw technique, and it's just going to show you different ways that you can learn on cooperative learning approaches.
The jigsaw strategy is a cooperative learning strategy that helps children with their reading comprehension. It's a multi-step strategy that involves the use of home groups and expert groups.
Before we jump into the classroom, though, let's break down all the steps involved. First, students start in their home groups. Each student has a different text, but all readings are related to the same main topic, for example, gardening. Next, they move off to their expert groups, which bring together students reading about the same subtopic. So every student studying vegetables would be in the same expert group. By discussing the subtopic together, they can become experts in it. Finally, the expert groups break apart and the students return to their home groups. Now, each of the students is an expert in one area of the main topic, and they can share that information with the students in their home groups. In essence, each student has become a piece of the puzzle, and when they come together, they help each other form the big picture. Now that we've seen the graphic representation, let's watch Kathy Doyle and her students put the strategy into action.
I want to know what you remember about the jigsaw strategy. Keith?
We went to different home groups.
And then you remember moving your body to another table. Does anyone remember when you got to that other table and you met with other kids who all read the same thing that you read? What was that group called? Deja?
It was called an expert group.
An expert group. When you're done with your discussion at your expert group, it's time for you and your expert friends to go ahead and figure out what was the main idea of what I read. What are some of the details that I want to report back to my home group? So together you're going to fill out a graphic organizer kind of like this. So you guys will all have your own because you will eventually leave that expert group and go off to report to your home group. So the first thing I'm going to give you is a clipboard. So when I call your name and I tell you where you're headed, I'm going to give you 4 clipboards and they're all ready to go. You are going to use your new text that I'm giving you. There are directions on here if you forget what you're supposed to be doing.
It's now time to head off to the home groups. Let's follow Maya, who's going to become the herb expert in her group.
And I would like the story too.
In the home groups, each student reads an appropriately leveled text about a different subtopic of gardening, jotting down notes as they go. Maya will cover herbs, Savion will study flowers, and Moya will learn about vegetables. Kathy keeps an eye on kids as they work to make sure they understand the assignment and stay on track.
So tell me, what did you learn so far? Did you read the first page yet?
Yeah.
What did you learn on this first page?
I learned on this first page, that they use herbs to put spice in food and cook.
So herbs, they're actually called herbs. They use herbs to put spices in food. Why don't you jot that down? Did
Next,
you know what
the
herbs
students
were
are off to
before
their expert
you read
groups. There, Maya will get to talk shop with the other students studying herbs.
It is time to move to expert groups. So I am going to say a number, because your expert group is a number. Look at the text you are reading, and if that text says number 1, I want you to move here. Look how quickly Moya moved. I love it.
And we're off again. In the expert group, the students will ask each other questions and pull out facts from their reading.
Most herbs are easy to grow. I learned that sometimes they need water every day. I learned that gardeners plant herbs outside. Herbs are putting food to spice things up. Let's start working on this.
After discussing the topic, students decide what key facts they will report back to their home groups. Kathy has the kids use graphic organizers to help them arrange and remember the information.
If that's your main idea, what are some special things about herbs? Do you know? I'll give you a minute to write it down.
Well, each of us could use one of the things off of our
The facts that you've written down, you're
our
right.
facts.
That's true. Each of you could use one of the facts. So do you want to share one, Maya? What's your fact?
Well, my fact, I would put down pot plants dry out faster than outside gardens.
Okay, what about you? What are one of the details you'd like to put about that's special about herbs?
They need very little care.
That is special.
Once their organizers are complete, the students are ready to return to their home groups to report.
So the best part of Jigsaw, when we get to come back home as an expert reporter and report to our group all that we know. So it's time to do this. I want to remind you that it is your job to actively listen to everyone who reports. Antonio, because I'm actually going to ask you, what did you learn from Virginia? What did you learn from Moya? I want you to go back home and bring with you the graphic organizer. It's like a poster that will help you report to your group. Green group, go back home.
As the final step in Jigsaw, each student teaches the other in their home group about the subtopic they researched. So Maya shares what she's learned about herbs.
Cooks use herbs to put spices on food.
And the others teach her about growing flowers
It takes over a week to grow flowers.
and gardening with vegetables.
You can grow lettuce, spinach, and tomatoes in your house.
As a wrap-up, Kathy has the whole class come together and share what they've learned from each other.
Garden.
It's time to move to the carpet in the front to share. Okay? So I'm asking you to move. You don't need to bring anything. Just bring yourselves, and all your new knowledge is up here. Okay? It's all up here, so you only need yourselves. I really want you to think about what happened in that home group at the end and think, who taught me something? Because this time I don't want you to tell me something you read. I want you to tell me about something you learned from a reporter friend.
In growing herbs, I overheard Isaac say that herbs don't really need much care.
Okay, so under growing herbs, in this learning community, you heard so much teaching going on.
Even
that
though
you
he wasn't in
overheard.
my group.
He wasn't even in your group and you learned something. Herbs don't need much care. She even credits Isaac for that fact. Antonio?
Other gardeners plant flowers to feed butterflies, birds, and
So
bees.
flowers are sometimes planted to feed. Tell me the difference between annuals and perennials. Did anyone learn about annuals and perennials?
Annuals stay for 1 year, and perennials stay for more than 1 year.
Excellent. Deja.
When I was reading my book, Growing Vegetables, they said on one of the pages, they said some gardeners say if you grow in your own backyard, it has a better taste.
Jigsaw supports students' comprehension and their skills in working together, but it's not without its cost. Jigsaw requires a lot of advanced planning and organization. You saw Miss Doyle use colors and numbers to help her students navigate themselves around the classroom. She also had to think pretty carefully about the groups that she formed, for their expert groups, but also for their home groups. Teachers could make use of parent volunteers or instructional assistants to help work with each small group. And teachers should also think pretty carefully about the reading material that's assigned to each group. Last, you'll want to find a meaningful way for students to pull together all the information they learn from all the experts. One of the main benefits of Jigsaw, however, is that every student is accountable for their work. As an expert, they're accountable by sitting in their small groups and participating in that reading. And then back in the home group, every student is accountable because they're the expert on the material. And something I think you'll find your students really enjoy.
Kagan, it's all about engagement. Traditional teaching engages some students, but not all. Kagan is a revolutionary approach to teaching that actively engages every student. Let's look at the problems traditional teaching creates. Students sit in rows. The rule is no talking. The teacher presents new information or a new skill. To engage students, the teacher asks the class a question. One student responds at a time. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So what's wrong with that? The first problem is we set our students against each other. When the teacher calls on Peter to answer, Susie lowers her hand in disappointment. Ah! But when Peter begins to falter, she shoots her hand back up, waves it wildly. Pick me, teacher! A subset of students compete for the opportunity to shine. A competitive class is not a brain-friendly learning environment. The next problem is students spend very little time actively engaged. The teacher is doing most of the talking most of the time. When we finally do engage students, it's one at a time. It's like being in a long line waiting to be served. A big percent of the class is somewhere between mildly interested and comatose. Many students don't want to turn. They feel they can't or don't want to compete. Johnny is shy. Monica is lower achieving. Juan is still learning English. These students don't want to be singled out. Don't call on me. They hide. They opt out. It's no wonder we have an achievement gap. Traditional teaching engages some of the class, but many students can easily slip through the cracks. Kagan engages all students. We turn things around, literally. Instead of facing the back of a classmate's head, we turn students around to face each other. Instead of calling on one student at a time, we can call on all students. Using a Kagan structure timed pair share, the teacher asks a question. In pairs, partner A shares for 30 seconds, then partner B shares for 30 seconds. Everyone has a turn. Sharing with a partner is safe. There's no need to hide. In just a little over a minute, we engage every student. In the same amount of time in the traditional class, we engage one student. What's better, engage one student or engage every student? Absolutely right. Everyone learns more. It's not just the amount of engagement that matters. It also matters how we engage students. With Kagan structures, we engage students with interactive pair and team structures. While students master academic curriculum, they develop essential social skills. They learn teamwork skills. They develop communication skills. They practice leadership skills. These are the very college and career readiness skills our standards call for. In teams, students are no longer isolated or competing against each other. They celebrate each other's successes. They are on the same side. Cooperation leads to kinder and more caring kids. We create buddies, not bullies. Kagan's simple yet powerful structures transform education. In numbered heads together, teammates put their heads together to review. Everyone is more active and the content becomes more memorable. In quiz trade, students repeatedly quiz classmates. They have so much more fun being up and active than working alone. In rally coach, partners solve problems together. Instead of independent practice, students have a peer to coach them and provide immediate feedback. Why teach the traditional way when we have so many alternatives to engage every student? Kagan isn't something we think might work. Kagan is scientifically research-based. Hundreds of studies on cooperative learning show tremendous academic and social gains over traditional learning. With Kagan, teachers are engaging their disengaged students. Struggling schools are making dramatic gains. Entire districts are raising their test scores. Kagan works. Kagan works because Kagan creates full engagement for every student. Engaged students aren't bored or disruptive. Engaged students enjoy school more. Engaged students learn more. Kagan, it's all about engagement.
The silent card shuffle is a cooperative strategy that has several applications, such as sequencing, classifying, matching and mapping. For matching activities such as relating words with definitions, one should always offer a few more definitions as red herrings. The silent card shuffle employs all 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy and most of the multiple intelligences. This is how it works. Decide on the material to be addressed, such as language building. In this activity, cards have been created representing nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs and articles, prepositions and pronouns. Create a master copy, as shown here. Make copies of this and cut up the cards. Then, place them in envelopes for each group. The rule here is that there are 6 cards in each of the 7 categories, including the heading. A set is given to each group, and now the silent card shuffle begins. It has 5 steps. Step 1. Silent card classification. In teams not exceeding 4, students undertake the task. In this case, students will be required to classify the cards. Here, each column is headed by the category word, such as noun, which is written in capitals so it is easily identified by the students. The next card is a picture that relates to the classification, followed by 4 words for each heading. Note that no talking may occur in Step 1. Step 2. Justify and refine. When finished, at a signal from the teacher, the group may talk, challenge each other, and make changes. Step 3. Circle and observe. Leaving one person behind as the group's representative, the other 3 students from each group visit the other tables to note the efforts of their peers. They may ask the group representative questions and voice their objections, but no changes may take place. Step 4. Return and refine. Students return to their home table and, based on their observations and discussions, decide if they wish to make further changes. Step 5. Teacher debriefing. The teacher displays the answer, and students self-correct, discussing the changes as they do so. The teacher later debriefs. This particular activity can now be extended with students doing the silent card shuffle again, but this time using the cards to construct the best sensible sentence. Make a game out of the activity by placing a value written on the underside of each card, such as articles, prepositions and pronouns, scoring 1 point, nouns and verbs, 3 points, and adverbs and adjectives, 5 points. See which group can set the highest score. This activity can be modified for other language studies by writing the cards in Spanish or French. This is clearly a learner-centered activity, allowing teachers to assess levels of competency and understanding. It is an excellent strategy for use after lunch, as it is a highly tactile activity and involves lots of movement.
So after those videos, we have seen some cooperative learning techniques. But looking at the whole lecture, we see that we looked at the definition of cooperative learning, how it compared to group work, and the goal of cooperative learning, which is to expand and learn from the group. We also looked at how to do some icebreaker techniques, and we also looked at some cooperative learning strategies. So I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and if you have any questions, you can just send me an email. Thank you so much.